Good afternoon, gang. It is June 24th, and this is Forward Focus. I know it has been a fun morning. It's been a fun couple of days, actually. The Fed has given us a lot of movement. We are just coming off 100% extension of the pivot off of the high here today on the 300 tick chart. It held it within the tick. So the 100% extension was 77.59.14 and it held it at 77.59.25. So exactly right on spot. I'll show you guys that here in just a minute. We have been having a lot of fun in the forum. If you are not in the forum, what are you doing? Get over there. It's on Telegram. And we hang out there all day and a lot of times during the night as well. Let's flip on over here to our charts and let me show you guys what is going on. First of all, how many of you have read my book so far? Have you made it through it yet? Well, you can pick up your own ebook copy by going to tonihansen.com/ebook. We've also added another format as well. So it was in an ebook format, and we also added a PDF version for those that had trouble reading it in the ebook format. So if you need PDF format, now you've got that version as well. Let me show you guys the beautiful action right now on the NASDAQ. I just closed my pivot trade here. I turned my volume down, so hopefully you don't hear all my alerts pinging in the background. So here was the trade I just completed, and it is literally the 100% extension of the move here. Look at how perfectly this held, you guys. You're just right at that zone. I don't have my snap mode on in this one, but we are just right at that low. And we just came right back into resistance here. So this is actually how I had my exit placed on here, just under that. Let's see, David, how do you access the PDF version? If you guys need a copy of the PDF version, email help@tonihansen.com and Sarah will set you up. So she will shoot it right over to you. So those of you that got the book and you don't want to read it on like a mobile device, you'd rather read it on your desktop or something like that, then you can get the PDF version. Just email help@tonihansen.com. So she just got that up for you guys this week. What type of alerts do I use? Are they all Fibonacci price based? For the most part, yeah. So I have alerts set when things are coming into key levels so that if it's not in front of my screen that I'm watching it. So this one, the reason I was watching this also was because it was coming back into this congestion over here. And anytime something comes and does 100% extension right back into previous congestion that it broke out of, it's almost always going to bounce. So it's a really good level that you can go and get nice pivot type of trades out of. I don't know what we've got on the bigger retracement. I didn't have that on, but we can look at that too. Yeah, it's right around a 61.8% for the larger trend move as well. So you've got kind of that double whammy. And that's also double whammy resistance right here too. I actually had tried a little pivot right here. When it came into that support, I only made 3 points on it though, because it just was not acting right. And I thought, you know what? That probably needs to go for that bigger 100% instead. So it was based on the smaller move here. And I put my order in at 77.70.25. Oh, I just took 3 points on that one. So this one's been nicer. We got a nice 10-point move out of this. So I will do pivot trades like that. They're not the core technical template patterns. But when you've got levels that are coming back into a previous support breakout zone, and you've got measured move levels, then you've got a good chance that you're going to get a bounce type of trade. Now this is the strongest one when you're going for the 100%. That's always going to be your strongest. So if you're 100%, same momentum, and it's right into that zone, then you're looking at a really, really strong reactionary zone. Sometimes they'll pivot immediately. A lot of times they might kind of pause a little bit and then get going. That's totally normal. So what we've got going on here on the larger time frames, let's take a look at our larger time frames here. Our weekly is just coming back up into those previous lows. And remember, you guys, we've been talking about this weekly here for a while. The way this formed and the way this reacted after this bounced on the daily time frame here, we were looking for the possibility of this to go up and to do a slightly higher high, basically create an extra little trap kind of blurb here on the weekly time frame. And that is still in the realm of strong possibility because of the way we've been pulling up here. So what I was looking for was actually a 2T. This paused a little bit shorter, where I would have loved to see a 2T action form. 2T, I would have rather seen it come up into there and go to the measured move, but a measured move is still going to place it at a bit of a slightly higher high there on the daily chart. So I'm still looking for that. Yesterday I mentioned on the Dow in particular, we were still basing at highs. We still had room for another push on the upside. So I'm still looking for this to try to push higher. It's a little bit fast. We've got a 1, 2, 3 underway. Let's see where we're at on the extension on this. 50%. That's a little disappointing. You guys, why? Who can tell me why? Why do we not want it to stall at 50%? League of Trader folks know this. Let me put this over here on the 240 as well. So you guys can see here. So we stalled at 38.2, and then we're at the 50%. Right. So when we stall at 50% and we can't make it up to that 61.8, which would have been a smaller measured move as well, there's a better chance it's not going to make it to the 100%. So we could see this struggling into next week. Sometimes it will totally pull back here. It doesn't have to go into complete reversal, but what can happen is it can do this. Let me grab a different color. It can go and do like another base like that. That's the main redeeming pattern that can get it going again. So at this point, this is best case scenario to get this up to that upper level. To have this pull back here for a couple more days, something on par with the previous correction, that would be best case scenario for the bulls as we head into the end of the month, because that's what's going to allow for that to have the strongest continuation. Any other setup earlier, it's going to have a harder time. It won't make it up to this level. But this pattern here that develops, that's what can get it up to that level. Where will it go if it stays in the consolidation for a while? Well, ideally, we wouldn't want it to pull back under this 38.2%. So around 7,700. is what we're looking for on the NASDAQ. So slower consolidation pullback into around 7,700. That's what I'm going to be looking for stronger swing trade and larger time frame buys again. Let's go look at our other indices here. I'm battling a bit of a migraine here, so I don't have my energy level quite up as high as normal. I won't be singing to you today. You're like, yes, thank you. So on our 8,000 tick chart here on the ES, we had this breakout here this morning. Actually, if we look at a 30-minute chart, you're going to see what led this breakout a little bit easier. Go over. Here you go. So the 30-minute chart you can see looks cleaner for our triangle. So we got the Phoenix coming out of the triangle. And a lot of times when you're at an upper level with a triangle like this, where you've already got these multiple buys, your highest probability measure level for a target is to look at the smaller measured moves. So really the best initial target level on this that I was looking for was right here. But we went and had momentum pick up and momentum managed to increase. So when it came into this level on the smaller time frames, it basically did the same type of thing that we saw happening yesterday on the NASDAQ. Go down here on the 1-minute chart where it flushed. So that move into closer to that initial measurement flushed, and then it did the 1, 2, 3 into highs. So a lot of times things that start out slowly can gain momentum like this. This is exactly what happened with the NASDAQ yesterday. So the NASDAQ yesterday on the afternoon, I'm going to go down to smaller time frame. Here, the 1,000 tick chart. What we were looking at going into the afternoon was this shifting momentum. What that means is that it increases the odds that you're going to get that flush. That flush actually created a two-way pullback. So we had a 1, 2, and then it was able to do the 1, 2, 3. Wasn't quite as extreme as we saw here today in the S&Ps, but it's the same idea. And so that 1, 2, 3 coming out of that, gaining the momentum again, that puts in the exhaustion. And we had a really nice reversal off of the highs here. I did the exact same thing that I did at the lows. I used a measured move to short this using a tick chart. My entry on this was, let me go over on my chart executions. So let's see, we were shorting. And it was at 1108, 1108.39. So I got 7802.25 by using that same measured move technique here. So right there, you guys can really get like the absolute best entries and exits when you are watching for some of those smaller measured move levels. So 7802.25 was my fill on this. And it was basically just a small little 2T. I know I saw some of you guys in the forum calling it a momentum reversal. I call it a steep 2T, even though it has a slightly higher high here, because this pullback was slower than this pullback. And with a momentum reversal, they're Vs. So basically, it's a hybrid of a momentum reversal and a 2T is what you've got here. But it's that same technique, the same measured move technique. And I saw some of you were catching this nice continuation. That's the 1, 2, 3. Again, some of you called it an avalanche. It's again, hybrid type of move. Usually when I'm calling something an avalanche, it's something that's basing out longer than the pullback, but I'll make it exceptions and mix the two names up too. 1, 2, 3, basically what that name is based upon is that your pullback lasts a certain amount of time, your correction lasts the same amount of time, and your continuation lasts the same amount of time. So I'm telling you guys these name differences because a lot of times people will get too wrapped up in names and lose track of, hey, what's going on in the underlying thing? So here you had the two-wave move back up here and you had a pullback. So technically this could have stalled at this point because it pulled back about 50% of this drop. So this previous low stands a shot that it can stall the move. You just have to watch momentum as it's coming into there. So usually if I get like this V type of bottom for something that's trying to do more of a 1, 2, 3 type of move, then I'm going to take off part of the position if I'm short there, because that's the zone that if it's going to go into more of the traditional avalanche, it's going to do it there at that point. Sometimes it can do it with a tilted avalanche and can go a little bit lower and still do it, but you'll still have it basically trying to stall at that zone. So that's a do or die point, basically. It's either going to do and continue with the larger 1, 2, 3, or it's going to stop, go into the avalanche, and then continue. So that's what we had going on here. So far today, you'll notice this nice, lovely little shoulder over here mimics the side on the way up too. So that's also helpful with market timing on the downside. We have a little bit of a slightly lower low here, kind of a 2B type of pattern happening right now. So larger time frames, you guys know what we're looking for on larger time frames. Let's take a look at some of the other markets now. So GPN, oh my gosh, I just love GPN. This is like my favorite investment in ages, but you'll notice the same thing happens with these flushes. When momentum tries to shift and you get some measured move levels, you can get flushes. And then if it flushes and immediately pops back up, you have a good shot of getting those 1, 2, 3s happening. They happen a lot when the market starts out slowly, does a flush, and then goes into a 1, 2, 3. So we see it happening a lot when you're coming off of lows. So for example, if you're coming into a support level, it might start off with a slower start, kind of look like it's gaining steam, do a flush, and then go into 1, 2, 3. So you'll see this pattern repeat over and over and over again in the markets. And it's tricky when the market starts out because you're thinking, it's kind of starting slower. And the trick is usually that it will have these more rapid little pops in the bottom and it will hold a lower channel. So that's what can get things really going. And sometimes this will even flush back down into the channel. And then you'll get the rapid kickoff again as well. So I just happen to have GPN. I always look at it when I come and open it because I'm looking for signs that I need to be protecting longer term investment here. So that's why I've got this open. But let's look at some of the other markets now. We're going to look at our Forex pairs here. So euro dollar has been fun to play with recently. Notice that it is holding, trying to hold that strength we were talking about a month or so ago. So I had this as a buy here, had the two-wave move, sold it, it's pulled back right smack into that zone that it broke out again. Those that would be looking for a longer term position, you wouldn't sell your whole position here because you'd be looking for the correction and then the continuation type of move. I usually use more advanced trade management, so I try to buy back in on corrections when I know there's a correction that's likely to happen. This is also a good reason where a break-even stop is never a good stop if you're just doing it for a break-even stop. You might have a technical reason that just happens to correspond with a break-even level, but I'll never place a stop right at a break-even level. In fact, that break-even level is often a point where I'm going to be looking to build back into the position again if I'm in the early stages of a position and am doing my timing movements to get into and build a trade. My goal to build a trade at lower levels like this is to get to a point playing some of the smaller moves when things are slower, like what I just showed you on where things can start out slower and then kind of gain momentum. So I take gains, I buy back in, I take some gains, I buy back in. I'm never fully out of the trade at that point usually when I'm looking for a larger time frame setup. But I'm getting it to a point that if that trade fails, it doesn't cost me anything. I don't take a loss on it. So even if it technically stops out, I don't have a losing trade. I'm going to be doing a webinar here in the next week. You guys will be getting emails coming up that will show you how to do that advanced trade management in more details and how to not use traditional strategies for entries, but to use better entries and targets on those traditional strategies like a cup with handle. So I'm going to show you guys how I trade them, which is not the textbook version. So right now, again, you're right back up at resistance here on the euro dollar. And you'll see we've got a little bit of a 2T-ish pattern forming here on the 240-minute. Market is shifting momentum here. So channel break and that can pull that back up, back into this channel so that you get more of a two-wave phoenix potential forming on the daily time frame. Your pound dollar, we'll do the pound next, and then I'll go back to the dollar yen. Nice three-wave move down into lows, good resistance here, trying to do a megaphone. That was also a megaphone buy setup down there a couple days ago. Also previous lows, essentially a two-wave drop on the daily charts. Let's look at the larger time frames. Larger time frames are iffy. So this larger time frame actually still has more room for downside. We talked about this last week as well, where it pulled back almost into this previous low. So this is a zone where it can do a congestion, lead to a lower low, and create a 2B. That can create a buy pattern at that point. So I would actually not be surprised if on the monthly time frame, this just goes into a trading range until the end of the year, really, and then gives us another drop on the downside. That would be shortable as a swing trade or a short-term position trade, and then looking to flip that trade around. So we'll see how that picks up momentum. I'm going to be looking for that short, and we'll see how that momentum picks up. The main con, of course, that we've got going on here is that we've got these lower lows as it's going into a range. So what we want to see is for this to do something that would go out to about here or so and change the momentum. So we could even see some higher highs than this over in this portion. But then we'd basically want to see it as like two segments here. So for this to come back up, come back down, come back up, and then come back down. That's what could help bring that lower. If this does something where it goes and keeps widening up and then starts to go narrow, that usually is a reversal pattern. So when you get a megaphone and then a symmetrical triangle, basically a diamond is more likely to be a reversal pattern. So you might see that pull up here even further so that you'll get some of these smaller measured moves. So it could even come back up into this zone if that happens here. Yeah, we do have, Brexit news to watch for, so that can always lead to some more rapid moves. Dollar yen gave us that next continuation down. So we were watching this as just kind of a flat base here. More selling. This still has more room that it could go. Let's look at this on the weekly. It's that lovely little triangle formation. So we're right at the lower end of that triangle. So a lot of times triangles like this, they can give you a false break one direction, then turn around, break the other direction, just hold smaller measured moves. Wouldn't be surprised if this does a false break down out of the triangle and then flips back around. I don't expect the range to break anytime soon. We should continue to hold that. Even if it breaks, pulls back up higher, I wouldn't expect this to go to a higher high anytime soon. But really looking to still continue to hold this range. I don't see anything giving me a better setup at this point. Here you can see our breakdown here. Smaller measured move is in place here. But again, this has a little bit more that it can go to, a little bit more downside here. Let's look at Swiss, dollar Swiss. Gosh, I just think that this dollar Swiss is going to start moving fast here soon. It, let's see. We're already trying to get a little bit of a flush down after those three highs. I don't see, I would have liked us to gone on a little longer to do a bigger flush. Let's look at the daily. So actually I'm going to do the weekly first, weekly, then daily. So weekly, we had those three evenly spaced highs we were looking at a couple weeks ago. It was basically a 2T on the last portion. That's what triggered the selling. And we're at some initial support here, but I could see this still going with momentum even further. So I wouldn't get too excited about reversals on this yet. This is something that can do a 1, 2, 3 at this point. So if this pauses just for about that long and you see it base here, that can trigger a continuation move on the daily time frame. It has to go at about that amount of time though. So look back at some of these other little kneecaps, and that's essentially the maximum it can base out and still do this. So if it goes out further than that, then it's more likely to chop around. You're more likely to see things start to go like that and just get really messy again. So the main core pattern that I would be watching for right now is for this to do a 1, 2, 3 on that daily time frame. But it has to go here and it has to base into there. JNUG. We'll come back and Lorena, I'll look at that Euro Aussie here in a second too. So JNUG is right up at the measured move resistance. Got to make this kind of crazy extreme here to really see this. So this is still looking higher there, Richard. think you were the one that asked about this. Yep, I see your question now. Yeah, so I actually, a lot of times when this forms like this, it will try to break this previous high. So I wouldn't even be surprised if this goes back up to 15. Now, certainly it has the potential to pause here in the middle, but we wouldn't want it to do more than like that kneecap type of pause I was talking about on the dollar Swiss. We would just want a short little pause and then the continuation. So we are at resistance here short term, and you can see the small two-wave measured move here too, but I do think that the potential is still up there to keep going. Notice the momentum here, so much stronger than it was over here going into 2019. That's what can help keep this going too. Yeah, it has that reverse split coming up as well. I know you need a diamond class, right, Donna? Okay, I told you I've got to look for more examples of those. They don't come around and happen very often, but they do happen. So what would have happened for this to be a diamond is that this could go into, like this is doing, you know, the widening wedge. So if it was to do the diamond, it would go like that. I don't think that's going to be the case on this one, but then it would break out higher again too. Basically what you want to see when you get a diamond is that when you got the megaphone formation, the other side should be the same time development. So you've got basically start your time development here to here, and then you want the 100% extension. So that's going to be the zone that you would be looking for buy setups. Let's see here. Euro dollar, or sorry, Euro Aussie. It is a dollar, just the wrong one. Oh, here's kind of a messy version. Let's see. Look at the week monthly. I don't know. I could see this going either way, but I would be much more happy to go on the long side. So I would like to see this essentially serve as a tilted flag and be able to do another run to the upside. So if this does a little bit of congestion right here, it wouldn't even have to last long, just a couple weeks. That's what could trigger that breakout. These are hard to trade because it's difficult to do decent stop levels and time and entry without keeping a wider stop because it can do little micro flushes here at the highs that are really tricky getting it going. But that's essentially the main pattern that I would be looking for on this one. So it's right at a do or die zone for that pattern to form. But that's what is like the main probability here. You can see you do have a little bit of that megaphone look going for it. Let's see. GLD. You guys have other questions, be sure to post them in the room and we'll take a look at them as well. GLD is looking higher too because it went longer than it should have to do a breakdown at this point, and it had that shift in momentum. So this is still looking to try to continue to gain momentum too. I think you've got up until 140 fairly easily, 139-ish. daily time frame, you'll see a little bit of a stall when it gets to about the measured move level here, just like on JNUG. But then it looks like it's going to try to keep pushing. So you'll notice over here, it starts out slower, and then on the pullback correction, then it gains the momentum. Also here, this is what I was talking about sometimes where things can start out slowly and then gain steam. So that measured move, you're going to see a little bit of a stall here within a day or two. But overall, I think you're going to see this keep pushing higher. That low on the NQ here held right at that 123.6% extension. Just by the way, gotta love those Fibonacci levels. Let me show that to you. It also had a little baby 2B here. I don't have my snap mode on, so it's a little bit off. But you can see where that zone is. And I had a little baby in there. Let me show you the baby. There's also that 76.4% retracement. So you had that double whammy of support there again. And here's the little baby, baby 2B right there. You can see it on a 25 tick chart here too, and kind of a 100 tick chart. You can kind of see it, little push there. That's another zone. Always an awesome little scalp buy in there. Now, this is something where when you're coming into support and you're buying pivots, ideally what you want to see is either exactly a measured move with momentum, or if momentum is slower and then it picks up going into that support, then I usually wait for a retest. Because if it starts out slow like this kind of did with more overlap from bar to bar and then kind of picked up steam into that support, there's more likely a chance it's going to blurb. It's going to do a little flush, kind of take you out and then turn back around. So those are the ones that it's best to use the channel break instead of the absolute pivot, or to look for that retest as your entry trigger instead. That's going to give you a better trade at that point. But when it's a full measured move, it doesn't matter as much. It can still hold right smack on the pivot. You might get a flush, you might get a little blurb, but if it's exactly a measured move, you have less of a chance that that's going to happen. So over here, when it came into the 100%, it had a little bit of strength right here. It's kind of hard to see, right there where my cursor is. But then as it pulled into the 100%, it kind of slowed a little bit. So that helped it out there. Let's see here. You guys got some other additional stocks you want me to take a look at here? MTCH. If I missed anything, please repost it as well. Oh, this would have been such a beautiful 2T if it had just gone to that slightly higher high. Monthly, weekly. See, the weekly is just a little stunted. So what I would have liked is for that to done a measured move and then have that little 2T here for blurb. That would usually lead to pretty rapid flush into this zone. Because it didn't quite make it up there, it's more likely to do a lot of overlap, a lot more back and forth action. It can still pull in, but it's more likely to do a lot more back and forth. So this would be something that, here's the weekly time frame. On the daily time frame, you're probably going to see more chopping back and forth, like 3 to 7 days one day, 3 to 7 days the next day. So a little bit of support in here. It could pull back a little bit more, but I wouldn't fully bet on it. Let's see. 240, you're almost out of measure moves there. Zone, like I said, it can still pull back a little bit more, but I don't know that it's going to be able to break that previous low very easily. I think you're more likely to get a reaction off of it. Apple. Nice shift. This still has more room to bounce on Apple. Weekly doesn't really have any strong pattern here trying to go. This could possibly do a steeper 1, 2, 3 back up, but that's, I don't know. I don't want to totally rule that out. I think that's a possibility just because of how fast this moved all the way back up to this previous high. So originally when it came up to this zone, I was looking for that to do that 2T. I think it's still a possibility, but it certainly got a lot messier because of the sharper pullback there. I like that it bounced fast though. That's what could help get that going. I wouldn't be short this. I wouldn't look for shorts. We do have a little resistance short term, but I would just expect it to be more intraday right now, the way it's forming. So be really cautious on this on the short side right now. There's not enough momentum shift to get that really turning around easily. Am I ever going to go over to TradeStation 10? I have TradeStation 10 on my other computer. I just keep forgetting. Only time I use it over here is for forward focus, essentially, on Fridays. I gotta remind, I should put like a reminder notice up, right? I know it's like you don't use anything for too many other things and then you just don't even think about it. So here, and every week I probably tell you, oh yeah, I should do that. We've got a measured move here on Roku. So I think we're getting to that extended level. You know, we've been talking about how much more room this had, how much more room this had. I think we're finally at a level that this needs a bigger correction now. So we're right at the larger target levels here. On this finally, I know we've been in bullish mode on this for a long time. But finally, we're at a zone where things should start to widen up. We'll get some bigger swings coming in now. We'll break that last portion of the uptrend channel. So, you know, when I was showing you guys on Apple, this is essentially what I'm talking about. So Roku had a pretty decent flush too, not quite to the extent as Apple, but it still managed to go to that higher high. So that's why I say Apple has that potential that we just drew on the chart, even though, you know, it might look kind of iffy here where it's trying to retest that previous high. I would not want to get aggressive on the short side on Apple because it has this potential to form. Let me re-show you that chart again so you can see it. So see here, over here on Apple, that's what I'm talking about, where it's not as clean as the one on Roku, and Roku wasn't even perfect, but Roku did have, you know, a more clear-cut two-way pullback. But that potential is still here on Apple because of how fast this bounced right here. On Tesla, here is the shallow avalanche that we were watching for, and it's gone and it hit that measured move level. So we're at some first initial support. This pattern can go into a 1, 2, 3. It doesn't always. A lot of times it will go and do a bigger 1, 2, 3 on the downside. Let's back up though to the monthly. I think we talked about this last week too. So the monthly, this is what we talked about last week, I remember, because the monthly, that 1, 2, 3 on the smaller scale brings it back to this lower level. It's a little bit less common to see this go and do a 1, 2, 3 here on the monthly. So if you see that pattern though, where it has the shallow avalanche and gains momentum, that can go into a 1, 2, 3 in general. Tesla, larger time frames not really as likely to support it. It's more likely to do a head and shoulders and then kind of have more of like a slower kind of move like that. That's more likely what we're seeing here on Tesla. Every time I see that shallow avalanche, I always immediately think 1, 2, 3, but then I go up to the larger time frame on Tesla and I'm realized like, oh, nope, not in this case. Larger trend placement matters a lot. You might have something looks like a perfect setup on a smaller time frame, larger time frame, not so good. Adobe is trying to do 2T-ish action. This is something it could even go for a third high down the line because of the way this is formed. It can even go like this. So this is where my target level would be currently based upon what Adobe is doing right now. And they look like such a mess. I wonder if you'll ever be able to read those. You will, Donna. I'm seeing your charts in the forum and they are, you remember what you posted like a couple years ago? What you guys are like, I wish I could see it like you can. But go back and look at your trades from a couple years ago. That's what you got to measure it against. Beyond, no, we did not analyze Beyond yet. So Beyond did the 2T, it trapped. That's what we were anticipating. And then we've got the avalanche. This looks like you'll probably get more pullback in here. I would stick to smaller time frames intraday on this now. You're going to want to look at like 30-minute charts here. Unfortunately, the avalanche went with a gap, so it wasn't anything tradable. But you are looking that this could pull back into this congestion here into next week. I don't see anything that would give me another buy on this. I mean, sometimes these will go for the third high, but I don't see that yet on the intraday chart. So watch how this reacts here. If it doesn't drop quickly, then you'll have the shot that it can do the third high, but it needs to not plummet easily. If it plummets too easily, that's going to have a harder time to do that. But I don't see anything right here. And I maybe scalp, but I wouldn't even do anything with this right now. Good support with the retest of the low intraday. It's probably going to widen up a little bit here. I could see this selling off on the downside this afternoon, but at the same time, I could also see it doing a little baby 2B and flipping around and holding in the range. So I wouldn't really put too much on this myself. It's not something that I would trade at this point personally. All right, you guys have any other questions for me here? I am the master of the 2B and 2T Jedi level. I love that setup. What is GPN? It's a merchant processor online, global payment network, I think is what it stands for. global payments. Oh, yeah. It's basically one of those for online businesses. That's why it's taken off so much. Nice little phoenix on the NASDAQ holding that support, you guys. Got resistance right here with a measured move. It's also back to that 76.4% level. Let's see, which one did I have have them drawn on? I don't know, maybe I erased it. I'll put it back on here. Oops. This one I got the snap on. There we go. So you're back at the resistance right here. Crypto. Hold on one second, guys. I grab a drink fast. I'm gonna go pull up that on TradingView quick. It's not coming up on my trade station. I never trade Bitcoin, but let me find you a chart here for it. So we were seeing this come back into play over the last couple of months, basically as it got back down into around a 76.4% retracement of this upswing here. And we were looking at it to try to continue. We'll see here. So here was a little 2T. And basically it ended up doing a two-wave pullback with this. So you've got nice volume drop throughout the entire correction, just like over here. Momentum pretty strong. I don't see a reversal pattern yet on the daily. Let's look at this smaller time frames. Basically repeating the same setup here on the smaller charts. So you're in territory for little 2T action to try to form. There's a little bit of attempt here on about a 15-minute chart here. Not a pretty setup for it. I don't really see anything in here. I think this could easily try to do another like flush and then drop. So what I'd be looking for is this overall channel. If this can do a channel like that, that's what can bring in some stronger selling. But I would want to see another high here to widen that channel up again. So this can do 1, 2, and then another third move. That can start to bring in selling again. Little short lesson on megaphone. Okay, megaphone, rapid lesson. All right, first of all, you have to have major support or major resistance for the megaphone to come into. Usually you'll get a little bit of a slower start. Pull back, pull up, pull back. And it will look like this. So I usually label this 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, and I'm looking for buy at 4. Spacing between lows will usually be a little bit wider, between lows 2 and 4, than between 0 and 2. Oftentimes you'll see two-wave moves back and forth in here coming off of 4. In order to keep going, this has to immediately pop up about 3/4 of the way from the move 3 to 4. Then it can do a pullback, and it can even have a steep move like that. And then it will usually come up here and make it up to 5. And that can keep the trend going even after that point 2. You can get continuations, you can get 2Ts, you can get larger phoenixes that can keep going. But that's what you need to get to 5. If this stalls here, then you're more likely to get something that is going to end up breaking lower. So that is your very brief lesson on the megaphone. All right, gang, I'm going to wrap this up here today, and I will try to bring more excitement back next week. Oh my gosh. I hate migraines, you guys. Just in time for the weekend, too. Not fun. I am heading to Phoenix this weekend to hang out with a high school friend and her 3 little boys, all under the age of 7, along with my little boy and 2 other kids under the age of 7. I'm going to bring lots of aspirin. Is it worth upgrading to trade station 10? I don't think you have to. If you're on like 9.5, I know a lot of people have just stayed on 9.5 right now. I'm usually slow at upgrading. I like for little quirks and kinks to get worked out first. That's ideally what I want to see before I upgrade something. So I'm usually a little bit slower than everybody else. It's kind of like what we talked about in League of Traders yesterday. A couple of people bought Snagit and they're asking, hey, do I need to get like the pay to get the constant upgrades? No, there's little changes, but it's not like massive. Yeah, here other people are saying that 9.5 is more stable than 10. That's usually the case when you switch to something new. There's usually quirks, unfortunately, and it takes a few months for quirks to get wiggled out. It hasn't mattered as much to me lately just because I've been doing more futures trading, but um, that'll probably be changing here as I go back into the fall again. You are welcome, you guys. Well, have a wonderful rest of the day and enjoy your weekend. And I will see you all back here next week. So I'll have this posted here on YouTube shortly, so you can go back and review it there. And the short link is just www.tonyhansen.com/Friday. So you'll be able to pull it up that way as well. Thank you guys so much. I will see you next week.